Hi, everybody. How you doing? Thanks for coming out. You look fantastic. Before we get started, let me just ask, does everybody get the reference in the picture there? Everybody? Because, you know, if you don't, I don't know if we can be friends. No, we can be friends. This is a Pitfall. It's the Atari 2600 classic. Really, I think one of the true defining influences on these side-scrolling action genre video games. If you haven't played it, I definitely recommend picking up a copy. At any rate, my name is Brett Harvey, and I am the Title IX EEO guy here at Mississippi State. My job involves making sure that we are complying with a whole host of laws that deal with everything from Title IX and really awful stuff like sexual assault to discrimination, retaliation, harassment, and many, many other laws. And I just tend to generally get drawn into sort of nasty scenarios of all different kinds that even don't have to do with those things. As Austin said, I am a recovering lawyer. It's been about 20 months since I last practiced law. Thank you. Thank you. And so, given that fact that I'm a lawyer, and you're probably not, if you are, I won't ask you to raise your hand or anything, it's fine. But if you're not, you might be very well asking yourself, legitimately, what can I tell you about succeeding in your field? And I have a very good answer to that question. Absolutely nothing. I know absolutely nothing about you succeeding in your job, whatever your job may be, whether it's human resources, ITS, teaching, research, whatever your field is, unless you are a Title IX director. And if you're here, I don't think you are. It would be somewhat alarming to me to learn that you were. But I really can't tell you how to succeed. But I can tell you, and my purpose today is to tell you, how to avoid failing in the most spectacular fashion possible. Because, you know, part of success is simply showing up and not burning the building down, right? A big part of success is being able to, when you take those steps forward in your career, not take massive steps backward, right? And these things, unfortunately, are a very common part of what I do. Before I came here, when I was practicing law, I found myself in the middle of some of the nastiest litigation you've ever seen. I practiced in Jackson with a large firm for about 10 years, everything from Fortune 500 companies to small towns to single parties, individuals suing each other and just tearing and clawing at each other all the time. And you'd frequently find yourself in these situations where people had gone from being on top of the world, I mean doing very well, or at least doing well, right, everything's going fine, to being in just disastrous situations. Up until recently, I was the CFO, and now I'm being sued for stealing, you know, intellectual property. I used to be the mayor. I used to be on the board of aldermen. I used to be a well-respected police officer. I used to not be in jail. You know, you had all of these things going for you, right? And now you don't. And something went horribly, horribly wrong. You took a massive step backwards. And now here we are sitting across the table with me either advising you or taking your deposition. And what happened? So to answer that question, let's begin by saying, let's phrase it properly. Why do people screw up their careers and/or lives? Okay? Well, this happens all the time to a lot of people, very prominent folks. This happens for all different reasons. We start, you know, Bernie Madoff, for example, we know the decisions he made. The individual in the upper right-hand corner, I believe, is a principal from a Mississippi school accused of cheating or overseeing a cheating operation on standardized tests. That fine fellow in the your upper left-hand corner is Ethan Couch, the fellow who ran over and killed 4 people in his truck and then pled what was called the affluenza defense. I'm so rich I didn't understand that my actions were wrong. We have Johnny Manziel. What more need be said, right? Lance Armstrong, same thing. Donnie Tyndall, former coach of Southern Miss in Tennessee, accused of academic cheating and other things, probably won't be able to coach again. Justine Sacco was, I don't know if you remember seeing this, successful public relations executive who decided one day to tweet that exact joke you hear saying, "I hope I don't get AIDS, just kidding, I'm white," when she was going to Africa, which was a terrible thing to do and lost her career. And then finally, that gentleman right there in the middle, in the red, is Scott Walker, not the governor of Wisconsin, but the other Scott Walker from Mississippi. He has a mock-up of the Walk of Champions right there in his dining room in his house, which may be the most Ole Miss thing ever done. But he actually just spent about a year in prison for defrauding the Department of Marine Resources out of a couple of $100,000. Before that, super successful guy. So what do all these things have in common, right? What happened to all these people? None of them were forced to do these things. Why do people screw up their careers and or lives? Before we can start talking about specific rules and things, we need to understand this taxonomy of why and how people make these horrible professional mistakes. And I would posit that there are exactly 3 reasons. There are exactly 3 reasons why people make terrible professional and personal mistakes to have huge setbacks in their lives. And with your permission, I would like to cover those 3, right, and understand what they are as sort of the groundwork before we move on to the specific areas in terms of university policy and the law. Okay? Okay. So number 1, reason number 1 why you might screw up your career or life, being evil. Now, you might be sitting here today and be thinking to yourself, well, I'm not evil, which is exactly what an evil person would say. People who are evil genuinely don't believe that what they're doing is evil. For example, take Hydra, the organization that's opposed to Captain America. They fundamentally believe that you need an overarching force to control the world's government and economy and politics and things like that. Otherwise, things will just go to chaos. They really don't believe that they are the bad guy. Now, you may very well be right. You may not be evil at all. But just to help you make that determination, a few signs that you might be evil. Number 1, and this is very serious, viewing others solely as a means to an end. Now, I'm not a psychology professor. I think some people call this being a sociopath or whatever, but viewing people only in terms of what they can do for you. You know, maybe this is in the back of your mind, but viewing people primarily in terms of what they can help you do and help you accomplish, thinking solely of them in that way. Casual lying, this is a common sign of folks who, and of course, you know, psychologists don't use the term evil. They have things in the DSM-IV that are more nuanced than that, I'm sure. But, you know, this is a common sign of folks who have a real difficulty dealing with others and do bad things. Casual lying. You lie for no reason, or you lie for a reason and have no difficulty do it. You lie like you're breathing, you know, no big deal. Rationalizing harmful behavior. Yes, okay, maybe I did do something that would seem bad, right? It would seem bad that I did this, but it really wasn't bad in this case because of extenuating circumstances, because I had a larger ambition or good intention. And then finally, you know, a more definite sign would be like maniacal laughter, referring to your home as your lair, referring to your friends and colleagues as your minions. We actually had a person here at Mississippi State who did the last of those 3 things, and I probably can't say more about it, but it's entirely possible that you might be evil. But okay, let's say you're not evil, fine. Maybe the main benefit of this was for you to rule out the possibility that you're evil. Well, good, great, but there are still 2 more causes to go. So number 2 is being oblivious, okay? Being oblivious is much more common than being evil, and people will frequently admit to being oblivious. They will acknowledge that they don't know all the things they need to know. So to help you take inventory of whether or not you may be oblivious to the standards that apply, here are some questions you might ask. Do you not read rules or policies? Do you know that there are some things that you need to read? University policies, applicable laws, ethical rules, rules for your particular profession or your particular job that you really know are out there that you just never got around to reading. Read them. So there you go. Not paying attention to general communications or warnings. Does your department or division have a regular update of some sort, an email that comes out that you're supposed to read? Or have you gotten specific requests and warnings like, oh, you know, hey, Brett, you know, I just need to remind you, we need, you know, you don't pay attention to those things. Read them. And I will say that as somebody who's worked in compliance, whether it's as a lawyer or a compliance officer for a long time, one of the main purposes of those emails, yes, one purpose is to inform you and to actually have you know, but another purpose is so that the person who's in charge can say, okay, I did my part, I sent out an email, I told you what you needed to know and told you to read it, and if you didn't read it, now all the blame rests on you. So a sort of a CYA function to some of those things. Being habitually late, not just to meetings, but just generally being inconsiderate of people's time, but also being late in terms of finding things out, being late to finish or hand in things. and being the last to know important things. Now, I don't mean being the last to know, who's dating who or who got divorced or whatever, any of that stuff. I mean being the last to know important things in your department. There's nothing wrong with being the last to know in any individual case, but if you're habitually the last person finding out when important things are happening, it might be that you're not paying quite as much attention as you need to be paying. So that's being oblivious, signs that you or I, any of us, can fall prey to this. And by the way, these aren't on-off things. I mean, you can be a little oblivious for a while. I don't know if you can be a little evil for a while. I guess you can. And then recover from it. And then finally, number 3, what I call special snowflake syndrome. Special snowflake syndrome falls somewhere on the spectrum between being evil and being oblivious. It is sort of a halfway point, and it is, in my opinion, probably the most common reason that people do things to screw up their careers. What does special snowflake syndrome mean? Well, it basically means this. You acknowledge that there are rules, right? And you know that they're there, and you acknowledge, broadly speaking, that the rules need to be followed, right? You also don't hate people. You're not a sociopath. You're not actively seeking to abuse them for your own purposes. But the difference is you're special. And by that I mean you acknowledge that everyone is created equal, but some people, most importantly you, are a little more equal than others, right? And as a result, you have leeway to ignore some of the rules, to do some things, to demand some things, to expect some things that are different from other people, that might be contrary to the rules of the law, or in some cases contrary to just good sense. If you want to know whether you suffer from special snowflake syndrome, ask yourself if you find in difficult situations where perhaps you're being accused of doing something wrong, right? Have you ever said any of the following things, okay? But I'm a nice person. Okay, I don't doubt it. You probably are a nice person. But, all of us think that we're a nice person. There was a commencement speaker that said we all have the spark of Zeus. There's 7 billion sparks of Zeus out there floating around in the world. We all think we're nice people. Okay, fair enough. Doesn't justify bad behavior. Let's see. I have the institution's best interest at heart. Yes, I know what the rules are, but you have to understand I have a larger, higher purpose here that is seeking to advance the interests of Mississippi State University. Therefore, some rule breaking is permitted. I'm indispensable. Right? I am so important to this office. They couldn't do this without me, and they know it, and I know it, and I know they know it. So therefore, I can't be removed. They can't punish me. This is bordering more toward the evil end of the spectrum, right? But it is still in the middle in what I'd classify as the special snowflake category. Relatedly, I'm really, really smart. Now, this is not at all uncommon in a university setting with people who believe I'm really, really smart, so I can look, you've got these rules over here that are for regular people because they need simple rules that have like black and white, right and wrong, but I'm really, really smart. See, so I can figure out what the real subtle intent is, and I can follow the intent rather than following the rules. It's true love. It's true love is a more specialized excuse for special snowflake syndrome. It's a little bit more, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but you would be amazed what bizarre actions people can justify in the workplace when they believe it's not just love, but it's, well, let's just be honest, lust in some cases, that they can justify some really bad behavior. I know what the real rules are. This is related to I'm smart. I've been around for a long time. I've been working here for 20 years. Okay, I know, again, that you have these rules, but I know what the real rules are, the ones that really get enforced, and I'll follow those. And then finally, look, this is me we're talking about here, okay? In other words, it's me, guys, come on, it's me. It's not some regular person, it's me. Any of those things would be a sign that you view yourself or someone views themselves as being a special snowflake, as being exempt from at least some of the rules because they are special. Thank you for indulging me in this taxonomy. Now that we have the taxonomy out of the way, armed with this knowledge, like this gentleman here wearing a hoodie standing on top of a mountain proclaiming victory, we are ready to go forth and conquer. Conquer 6 specific areas in which you might find professional pitfalls so that when you take steps forward, you do not take big steps back. And they are as follows: harassment, consensual relationships, money, come on, conflicts of interest, workplace vigilantism, I'll explain that, but it's something we see a lot, and just general honesty. if you asked me, you know, what the sort of 6 deadly sins are, the sinister 6, right? Things that we commonly see people doing when they derail their careers, when they end up, frankly, parting ways from this institution and other institutions and just really, really setting themselves back, I would wager that 95 to 98% involve one of these as the primary factor. All right, so with that, let's begin with workplace harassment. Now, I am not going to do the Title IX harassment training, I promise, okay? I know you've seen it. I know that you don't want to see it again. If you do want to see it again, we'll gladly do it. Letitia is here, and she will be more than happy to come and do the Title IX training for you. She's great, by the way. She's fantastic. I sound like Donald Trump, don't I? I sound like she's great, she's amazing, she's fantastic. I'm sorry, okay. But she really is, okay. She's really great. But let's talk a little bit about why harassment is important. So first of all, before I move on, because this really is kind of about, you know, I'm going to be talking about like, I'm going to move over here for a second. I'm going to be talking about like what you need to do, and this is kind of a self-interested presentation, right? I'm like telling you why you shouldn't do this to mess up your career. Before I do that, I want to start with a disclaimer, which is that workplace harassment is bad because it's bad, right? Because it makes people miserable. For every one person that ends up sitting in front of me worrying that they're going to lose their job, and in a few cases actually losing their job, right? There are 10 people who suffer in silence through just ridiculous types of just misbehavior and bad behavior in workplace harassment. In Mississippi State, I'd like to think that we're about as proactive as we can be, or we're certainly moving as fast as we can in that direction. But everywhere you go, it makes people miserable. So don't take this presentation as like you should only not do it because it'll mess your life up. Don't do it because it's bad. It makes people miserable. That said, it also derails careers. And I can tell you from experience, both in the private sector and here, harassment is something that, you know, if you think we're still in the sort of early 90s era where it didn't get taken seriously, it does. And just because you didn't hear about it, just because you didn't see a big newspaper headline, you know, I'm not here to tell you that, you know, anytime you see an empty office and you're not sure why, it's, you know, Brett Harvey, the Grim Reaper, going around getting rid of people for harassment. But I will tell you that we've lost some people. We've not lost them, we've actively gotten rid of them. It's a, you know, we know where they are, they're just not here. It derails careers, and deservedly so, okay? Now that said, it's not, like I say, it's not always in the spectacular go down in flames sort of way. The way this can end your career is not just that you get fired for it, right, or you get demoted for it, or you get some very public humiliation for it. It's also, in the quiet, they're a risk for promotion and hiring sort of way. Because if you're the creepy person in the office who says, you know, puts hands on people and says things that are sexual or biased in other ways, you know, comments that are racially loaded and things like that, just because you haven't been called into someone's office and had a hearing or something doesn't mean that people don't know, because people talk, okay? People talk. Sometimes people even come to us and say specifically, I don't want to proceed with formal discipline. And in students' cases, we have to honor that, right? But that doesn't mean that people up your chain haven't become aware of it, right? It doesn't mean, for example, in the old law firm that I worked in, it doesn't mean that they don't know that, you know, that some young lawyer over somewhere has said some creepy things. And that young lawyer might never know why he or she is not making partner, but this will be part of it. So just be aware. Being creepy is just a good way to derail your career, whether or not it results in explosive, you know, sort of, you know, end to your career, or just sort of a gradual hitting of a wall. Just don't be that person. There we go. And by the way, I should say that universities in particular right now are not going to be inclined to have a lot of tolerance for harassment, because in addition to like every other private employer that deals with the EEOC, for example, we also have Title IX, which is a broad anti-gender discrimination law, and a heavy area of emphasis is things like sexual misconduct, harassment, and assault that we deal with every day. And you know, there's not a lot of tolerance. Now, I'm not telling you, by the way, let me say, if you ever are accused of it, our office will be completely objective. I mean, we will. We consider all sides, all evidence, and we will make impartial, objective recommendations. We are not on a witch hunt for anybody, but I'm just here to tell you that when it comes to people making professional decisions about, you know, who do I want to promote, who do I want to hire, this kind of thing can be a real career killer. Okay? So with that, we'll move to the next. So what can you do? Well, like I said, I promise this is not going to be your standard harassment training. Does anybody know who this is? Okay, this is Sexual Harassment Panda. Sexual Harassment Panda comes from the South Park TV series. and he's a panda who goes around to elementary schools and teaches people about sexual harassment. And he has some very sort of standard stock advice. It's very boring. It's very programmatic. I am not going to be sexual harassment panda today, partly because Austin was supposed to have ordered the suit, but he didn't get that done. So with that, here's some practical things you can do to not be that guy or not be that girl. Hands to yourself. This should be obvious, but really, you know, as a hard and fast rule, just don't touch people. Okay, just don't touch people, okay? Now, there are some exceptions. Handshakes, high fives, and fist bumps, they're all permitted as long as they are mutual, like you're not going up and fist bumping people, you know, and they're not fist bumping you. If someone's passed out on the floor, you can help them up, that's fine. If you know CPR and they are genuinely, like really passed out, you're not using it for ulterior motives, you can do CPR. But other than that, don't touch people. Just don't do it because it gets misinterpreted, or it gets properly interpreted is the real problem. Just don't do it. Don't lose the ironic JK LOL, just kidding, laugh out loud kind of stuff. You may think that you have an ironic sense of humor and that when you say really sexist things, it's because you're like making a really complicated, nuanced joke about how sexism is bad. Nobody's going to get that. Okay, nobody's going to get that. So I'm not saying be boring or anything like that, but I'm saying just sort of stay away from the sexy humor, the sexist humor, any kind of humor like that, even if you think you're being ironic. It's very hard to be ironic. Irony is lost on most people. Okay, don't overshare. This is a common problem. Do not overshare. Are you and your spouse having difficulty, you know, in certain areas? Nobody cares, right? Nobody wants to know that. Now, you know, your pastor, your counselor, your best friend might care. Nobody at work wants to hear about that. We really don't. Thank you. Did you have a personal procedure? This is something that actually happened. Not to me, to someone else. A personal medical procedure of a very intimate nature. People say, how are you? The appropriate answers are fine, or still a little rough, but I'm getting better. And if you have like a best friend, then maybe you talk about it, but nobody wants to hear about, like, you know, your colonoscopy. So just don't talk about that, okay? All right, good, great, good. I'm glad we understand that. This includes social media. Realize that while you as a public employee have First Amendment rights, nonetheless, we hope that you'll understand that if you friend somebody from the office on social media, right, and you say things like comments to their posts or you're tweeting back at them or things like that, right, you're saying things to them, right? You're saying things to a colleague and a coworker. Now, would the standard be a little different in a court of law? Yeah, maybe, but remember what I said earlier, the threat to your career is not really in a court of law, right? The threat to your career is perception. So just remember, social media, same standards as everywhere else. People tend to forget this, and I will tell you, I wish I could go into specifics, but we have had some people at this university say things that would turn your hair white and make it stand on end if you saw it. And who knows, maybe some of you have seen it because they had friended, you know, people here, and it's not a good thing, so don't do that. Be aware of power dynamics. I don't mean to get like too much into like technical jargon and literature, but basically what power dynamics means is, you know, not everybody can, you might think, well, you know, if they didn't like it, they would just say, stop it. But not everybody feels comfortable enough around you to say that's not cool, right? If someone is a subordinate to you, either formally, like in the chain of command, or maybe informally, right? They're just newer than you in the same position, or, you know, they're a student and you're an employee of some sort, even if you don't have like a formal, you know, a relationship, they may not feel comfortable saying, hey, that's not cool, stop it. So you have to be proactive and think about, like, you know, am I saying something that a reasonable person could read as creepy, even if I don't mean it as creepy. Remember, it's not just sexual harassment. Everybody thinks it's just sexual harassment. It's not. All of the laws that we have that regulate us deal with every protected class that we have as a university has an analog for harassment. So if you're making racist jokes, there's a thing called racial harassment, right? If you're making anti-LGBT jokes, that's a form of sexual harassment. You can harass somebody based on age. You can harass somebody, you know, it has to be pervasive, it has to be persistent, but you just don't want to go in that direction. And so that leads to one piece of advice, which is this. You're really just better off leaving opinions about any demographic group at home, okay? Now, I hope that everybody in this room would be, we're far enough down the road that nobody in this room is going to make racist comments. Hopefully, most of us are not going to make any sexist comments. I'm crossing my fingers and saying that nobody in here thinks it's all right to make blatantly anti-LGBT comments like, you know, that's so gay or anything like that. But people do have opinions that don't cross into the realm of insults, right? Right now we have a debate in this country, for example, about same-sex marriage, okay? We've had multiple cases where we had to referee fights between people where, religion versus same-sex marriage came up in the workplace. And here's the thing. It's not me picking a side. I just don't want to referee that fight, right? I don't want to referee that fight. Your supervisor doesn't want to referee that fight. The university doesn't want to referee that fight. Do you have a right to your opinion? Absolutely. Absolutely. You have a right to whatever opinion you want. But in the workplace, probably better, even if you think your opinion is innocuous, even if it's like something like, hey, Chinese people are really, really smart. Well, okay, fair enough, but that's still, you're sort of getting into stereotype. Just don't say things about broad groups of people and you will be okay. Okay, that's a good rule of thumb to follow, even if you think it's sort of innocuous. So that's workplace harassment. Workplace relationships. Not all romantic/sexual issues are harassment. Not all of them are non-consensual. What I'm talking about here is workplace relationships of the consensual variety. Now, what I'm about to talk about here, if we haven't already gotten uncomfortable, we can go ahead and get uncomfortable now, is consensual workplace relationships, both of the licit and illicit variety. So just being super candid, I'm not going to ask for shows of hands, so everybody just listen up. These consensual workplace relationships are covered by MSU's Amorous Relationship Policy, which is OP 128. Consensual relationships in the workplace at MSU are not prohibited per se, but there are restrictions. Listen, folks, we don't want to be the sex police. I mean, we don't want to be the relationship police. We don't want to be the love police. And we recognize that there are situations when fully legitimate relationships form. You're in a small town, Starkville. Many of the people who are like you might be at this university, and you might even meet them in your department. And there are ways, right, to make what could be problematic tolerable and legitimate, but you have to be very, very careful about it, right? We're not here to be the police. Please don't think that we want to do that. But at the same time, you can have real problems in a workplace situation when people are engaging in these what we call amorous relationships without taking, proper steps to make sure there's not a conflict. Why? Well, because first of all, it creeps other people out, right? It just creeps other people out and it makes them doubt your fairness and objectivity. If you are in a position of authority, whether it's a supervisor of employees, a professor overseeing a lab with grad students in it, certainly a professor dealing with undergraduates, even if you're not technically violating any rule, if you have a relationship, particularly if it's an undisclosed relationship where people don't fully understand the nature, people can think two things. Number one, even if this is not true, they can reasonably think, number one, if I want to get ahead, then that's what I should do or should have done, right? And number two, if I don't do that, right, then there could be adverse consequences. And number three, and this is probably the worst, okay, and the person who's engaged in that is only getting where they are getting because of what they are doing. This is a recipe for disaster in terms of being able to run an effective department, right? Additionally, it clouds judgment. That's about external perception. There's also an internal reality that goes with that. It clouds judgment on personnel and other matters. If you are in a romantic or sexual relationship with somebody that you have authority over, we simply cannot assume that you have the ability to objectively evaluate them and to do what you need to do. We can't do that as an institution. You may have talked yourself into believing that, but again, illustration, special snowflake syndrome. I'm different, right? I can do things differently, okay? And so as a result, it risks metamorphosing into harassment. In other words, okay, while the relationship is good, we're worried about your judgment. When the relationship is over, we're worried about the opposite end of the spectrum, which is begins to look like potential harassment. So we get very concerned about this. However, as I said, we don't prohibit it entirely. Okay, and I should have said this, I forgot this. It can torpedo your advancement loudly or quietly. I'm here to tell you, there are people at this university who have lost significant opportunities for advancement because they made really, really poor choices. I'm not talking about like a 30-year-old professor and a 27-year-old grad student who immediately disclosed it. That's not what I'm talking about, so don't freak out about that. I'm talking about people who made really bad decisions to carry on covered up extramarital affairs and things like that. Am I talking frankly? Yes, I am, but that's the reality. Bad things happen. You don't want that to happen, okay? Workplace relationships, what's the rule? The rule is simple. No love allowed. No, sorry. That's not it. That's not it. That's kind of a caricature. What's the rule? First of all, don't look at your department, your specific department, as a place to meet people. It's a lot easier for us to resolve these situations if it's somebody, say, over in the physics department and somebody in the athletic department. That's not a big deal, right? There's really nothing there at all. There's not a problem. We need to know about it just to make sure, but no big deal, right? Okay? So, but try to not think of your specific department as a place to meet people. It's not sort of a singles kind of thing. Okay? Number 2, but if Cupid strikes, you must disclose it immediately. So if you find yourself in a situation with someone, with either party to the relationship has any kind of what we call power differential relationship, right? Any kind of authority over the one or the other, right? Whether it's a direct supervisor relationship, whether it's any other relationship with a grad student or something, it needs to be disclosed to the immediate supervisor, and they'll come to Human Resources, and Human Resources will try to remove that power differential, and there's a process that we follow, but it needs to be disclosed so we can try to make sure that there's no appearance of ethical impropriety. And if it gets to a point where you're not disclosing it and subordinates or supervisors lose their confidence in your objectivity, that's really bad, and that's where this starts to torpedo careers. Not that it happens, that you're trying to cover it up and that you're not being honest about it. That's what really starts to mess people up, okay? So don't let it get to that point. Next, money. Money, as you know, is the root of 78% of all evil. The other 22% are lust and revenge. But at any rate, it's easy to get in big trouble really fast when it comes to money, and most people don't know the rules, right? Most of you probably knew before you came in here that you're not supposed to harass people, right? You probably had some idea that putting your hands on people, you know, is not a great idea at work, trying to massage their shoulders. Okay, good, great, fantastic. But you may not know the rules with respect to money. So to sort of run through this fairly quickly, money, the basics. Misuse of university assets is governed by OP 119. Did you know that $1,000 worth of financial impropriety over any period of public employment can earn you a felony charge in the state of Mississippi? Now, $1,000 seems like a lot, unless maybe you've been working somewhere at a university for 10 years, doing a little travel here and there where you fudged on the mileage a little bit here and there, and you can very quickly find yourself with $1,000 worth of financial impropriety, which is considered theft. And you can technically, are you likely to be, you know, charged with a felony? I don't know. I don't know. It depends. But you would be within the felony statute. Common problem areas are travel, procurement cards, pecuniary benefits to family, improper contracting, purchasing outside state contracts. So let's look at some specific issues. Number 1, honest mistakes. Okay, this is the oblivious category, right? This is what can happen when you just don't know the rules and you weren't thinking. It might be forgivable, but you don't want to go down this road if you can avoid it. So first of all, purchasing items outside of the state contract or above the state contract price, right? And again, this is most basic level stuff. You really need to, if you don't know this, you need to consult with your department's purchasing manager, purchasing person, or with the purchasing department to learn the particulars. I'm not trying to get you ready to do this on your own. I'm just basically trying to get you ready to understand what the risks are. The Department of Finance and Administration in Mississippi lists certain negotiated state contracts for things like office supplies, printers, printer cartridges, cleaning supplies, body armor. So if you're out there buying body armor or printer cartridges or whatever, these things have to be bought from certain sources. And if you don't, here's the really interesting part. Let's say you go and buy some body armor and the purchase price would have been, say, $2,000 total for all the printer cartridges or whatever. Maybe your department doesn't use body armor, whatever. You pay $4,000. Do you know what, it was $2,000 under the contract, $4,000 is what you paid. Do you have any idea what the penalty is likely penalty is going to be? You personally are liable for the difference, okay? You personally can be liable for the difference. In other words, you can be responsible for that $2,000 difference. Or boy, if you make a big mistake on like a big copier or something like that, you could be looking at, maybe 5, 6, 7, a lot of money. So that's a bad thing. So make sure that this is not something you're doing on your own if you don't know the rules. Number 2, failure to follow proper contracting procedure. Basically, and this is really, really high level, not even getting into the rules, But the procurement office has a very detailed, it should say detailed, I apologize, detailed set of procedures governing how we do every kind of contract at Mississippi State. If you don't know what those policies are, that's fine, just don't do them, right? Don't wade into it. Your department has somebody to do it. Don't try to do it on your own. Every once in a while you have people who didn't even know there was a set of rules, who've gone off and entered into some kind of agreement with somebody. Maybe or maybe not, is it binding, but it's a bad situation. So if you don't do contracting and it's not your job, just don't do contracting. The takeaway is if you're not the designated person in your department, don't do it yourself. If you have questions, you can always contact Don Buffum's office or his staff. They're more than happy to answer them, but don't DIY on contracting and purchasing. Just don't take it upon yourself. Those are the common honest mistakes. Far more interesting are the dishonest mistakes. These are the things that people do with money when they really ought to know better, moving more toward the evil side of the spectrum. So here are some examples that I got. These are examples that I've heard, real-world examples, not necessarily from Mississippi State, but from Mississippi institutions. Exaggerated or fabricated mileage, tacking on 20 or 30 extra miles, putting in a meal reimbursement when you didn't actually eat the meal if you're in a department that doesn't require receipts. This is the kind of thing where one instance of dishonesty over, 40 bucks, right, can result in you getting terminated, and has. You just don't want to do that, of course. Double reimbursement. You get reimbursed from Mississippi State for a conference at Auburn, and you also get some reimbursement from Auburn, and maybe then you also write it off on your taxes as if you paid for it yourself, right? So that would be triple. Financing extramarital affairs, believe it or not, people do things like that and use state money for illicit purposes. And then finally, one of my favorites, completely made up conferences. Not like I went to the conference and only stayed one day. I literally made up this non-existent conference, left the school for a week, came back and asked for reimbursement for traveling across the country to a conference that not only didn't happen, but does not exist at all. Which that is a case where if you're going to go down, you might as well go down in flames. That's what we call chutzpah, ladies and gentlemen. The Pro Card. The Pro Card is dangerous because it's so easy, potentially, right? You can go out and make these small purchases with this card. And you can rack up a bill, and if it's for the wrong purpose, you can be in a lot of danger. Anything that's easy with money is potentially dangerous. Purchasing personal items like food and drinks. I'm supposed to go out and get sodas for guests in the office, and I put a 12-pack. Oh, I just happened to leave it in my trunk and take it home, and that happened 9 times. Or something like that. Little things like that can get you fired. You don't want to do things like that. It can end your opportunity for advancement. Purchasing supplies for your side business. Oh, we're buying 2 cases of paper. Well, maybe I'll just get a third one print some flyers for my lawn business or something like that. These things happen. It's never worth it. It's never worth the risk. Misuse of resources, non-monetary university resources. This is one where it really can get you. And this sort of borders on maybe you sort of might think it's kind of an honest mistake. For example, if you get an email about your business that you run, your lawn business, let's just say that, for example, right? And you print out that one email, like an agreement, on an office printer. Is that an ethical issue? No, it's okay. You can print out that one page. That's fine. No, I think. You ask your department, but most people are not going to care if you print out that one page, like that one-page agreement. But if you are, as I said earlier, using the office copy to run off 400 copies of flyers, right? Well, no money actually changed hands. If you're using the vehicle to drive, to things that have nothing to do with work, using resources. Sometimes when people don't actually have money pass through their hands, they don't think about how serious the problem is, okay? Keep it moving pretty quickly. Conflicts of interest. I'm going to just put all these up here because there's really 2. The Mississippi Code and 2 Mississippi policies govern common conflicts of interest. Now, a lot of people are not aware of these, so I just want to go through the 2 basic kinds of conflicts of interest. First, the classic conflict of interest, which is using your position as a Mississippi State employee to obtain a financial benefit for yourself, your business, or your family, okay? So using whatever influence you might have, right, in a particular department to try to get a contract or a benefit or any kind of monetary amount, right, steered toward yourself, your business, or your family. Now, the first thing you might ask is, if you really wanted to get technical about it, if you really wanted to push up to the line here, or maybe if you had somebody who, a family member who does business around here, what counts as family? Great question. Your parents, your children, your spouse, your siblings spouses, but interestingly enough, not your spouse's siblings. So if you have a sibling and they're married, you cannot steer business towards, say, their office supply company. But if you have a spouse and the spouse has a sibling, it's actually not regulated by law in the state of Mississippi. Is it kind of arbitrary? Yes, it is very arbitrary, but there you go. So now you know what counts as family. What are you prevented from doing? In other words, you might say to yourself, well, wait a minute, hold on. You know, yes, I went in the office and said, hey, my brother has this really good business that does X, Y, and Z. We should send the contract their way. But I didn't make the decision, right? The dean made the decision. The department head made the decision. I didn't sign off on it. But what state law and university actually policy actually prohibit is directly or being indirectly or directly involved in the procurement of goods or services on behalf of the university. So if you are in any way involved in the decision, whether you're being asked for a recommendation, whether you're being asked to find a list of folks, whether the department head, maybe it's your decision, maybe you're the head, or maybe they have delegated to you the responsibility to pick one and they're just going to sign off. If at any point in the process you are exerting influence on where the contract or where the deal goes, you don't have to be the final authority. You can potentially have a conflict of interest, and in those cases you need to keep your eye out for whether you, your business, or your family member might have an interest on the other side. And again, in a small community like the Golden Triangle, it's very possible that you're going to have family members, so you really have to be alert for those things. Outside employment, you can have outside employment, you just can't have outside employment that competes with your duties to the university. And what do I mean by compete? Well, basically, it can't overlap either in subject matter or time, right? So as the Title IX guy, I can't ask Mississippi State to pay me a consulting fee to Brett Harvey LLC to do a seminar about Title IX, right? In theory, I suppose I could, if they wanted to contract with me to do something completely different, like to teach yoga or something, we could do that. There are certain ways to do that, but that could be done. But it can't compete in the subject matter. It also can't compete in time. It can't take away from my time in the office. I can't be doing whatever the other thing is, right, on the clock during the day while I'm working as a Title IX guy. You have to disclose annually, because the people who make the decision, it starts with human resources and it goes through a process. So you don't get to make the decision where there's an overlap. There's a disclosure process. So if you have anything else that you do, whether it's for the university or anybody else, right? So for example, you do outside employment, you're a music professor, right? And then you want to offer lessons to music students at university music students. Well, you really need to check on that, because that arguably competes with your duty. I'm not sure if it would or not, but you need to check and see if like offering private lessons to MSU students would compete with your duty to MSU, your own sort of private side business. But make sure you're aware of that and make sure you check on it. Again, just to make you aware. Workplace vigilantism. Basically, you're not Batman, okay? Don't try to be Batman. Don't try to solve your problem yourself. We're almost done. I realize I've gone just a little bit long, but I want to get through these. We have great folks at the university. Our office has some wonderful folks, counsel's office, human resources, who investigate, dean of students, who investigate all kinds of misconduct. And one thing we really don't want to have is a situation where you feel like you need to sort of step in and be the disciplinary arm of the university. We have a lot of people who have good intentions trying to stop problems, but sort of step into things that they shouldn't be doing that can really be problematic. The biggest one is retaliation. Retaliation is, again, more to the evil side of things. If somebody brings a Title IX complaint, Title VII complaint, an ethics complaint, a complaint about a violation of state law, obviously it goes without saying that if you have any influence over them, you just step back and you step away. Even if they directly allege something against you, retaliation at Mississippi State is something we take very seriously, and so we ask people to really steer clear of the situation. And when we investigate, we tell people that. We tell people that retaliation is not tolerated. But regardless of what the nature of the complaint is, it's very important to avoid even the appearance that you're trying to hit back. And you'd be amazed. We see little things where people try to, sort of do these little technical things to get back at folks who've raised complaints. And we have to come in and try to diffuse the situation, and sometimes it can be very difficult. So don't retaliate. That should be pretty easy. Non-reporting. Starting last year and continuing this year, the vast majority of Mississippi State employees are going to be categorized as responsible employees, which is mandatory reporters, capital R, capital E, responsible employees, for purposes of Title IX. And we're actually we produced a video, and we're going to be releasing it to everybody about how these responsibilities work. You guys are some of the first outside our department to hear about the video. But most of you, come this fall, are going to be getting some information clarifying your obligation to report any kind of sexual misconduct against a student or an employee of Mississippi State that you learn about. Unfortunately, some people think that it would be better to handle it in-house, right? It would be better to just go talk to the person to try to mediate between them and potentially the person who attacked them or the person who harassed them. And we just definitely ask that nobody do that, okay? You put yourself at risk of not only violating university policy, but also of violating federal law. So if you have a mandatory duty to report sexual misconduct, report it, let us handle it. Also, some of you may be what we call campus security authorities. I don't know if I see maybe one or two people who might be, but you might be a campus security authority, and in that case, you'd have a duty to report crime. So obviously, you need to do that. But broadly speaking, if you've learned about a violation of university policy, and it's not your specific job to resolve it, attempting to handle it in-house is often a terrible idea that can get you looped into a bad situation. Finally, freelance investigation, just not a good idea. We really appreciate sometimes people come to us with like long lists of findings that they have and documents that they pulled together, and we do appreciate that. They usually mean well. But if you think something's going wrong, come to us, come to the Dean of Students, or come to Human Resources Management and let us do it, just because you shouldn't have to shoulder the burden of legal risk, right? You don't want to shoulder the burden that you've made some bad decision when you're not an expert on this. Bring it to us, let us shoulder that risk for you, okay? Finally, and this one's short, honesty. Just a few basic points. All these other areas boil down often to a lack of honesty on the part of people, and the lack of honesty is what kills careers as much as anything else. A few points. The cover-up is almost always worse than the crime. If you've made almost any kind of mistake that wasn't malicious, attempts to hide it from a supervisor, to hide it from the university, are the kinds of things that take a, hey, don't do that again kind of situation, to a, maybe you need to look for other opportunities sort of situation. So and this is something I saw in my old career all the time. Attempts to cover up, mistakes are what often lead to catastrophic situations. You'd be amazed how and when things get uncovered, you think you got away with it. We have multiple layers in the state of Mississippi: your department, our office, internal audit, IHL, the Attorney General's office, the state auditor, any of whom at any time can decide they want to see the records from any department, right? So the idea that you think, oh, well, I got away with it, I put this in the file, and it's a month later and nothing happened. I'm not trying to make you paranoid, but I just want you to understand you are at more risk than people in a lot of private sector industries, because there's so many regulators who are going to want to see so many records, right? So just realize that bad things for you and ethical and good things for the taxpayers can happen at any point. If you think you've made an honest mistake, you're always better off letting your department know, because at OCI, that's the Office of Compliance and Integrity, we get honest mistake questions all the time, right? People saying, I think I messed up. And our answer is, you know what? You did mess up, but it's okay. We can fix it. Things will be fine. We appreciate the heads up, and everybody will walk away with a better understanding for next time. So please just don't cover it up, unless you've deliberately burned down a building or something, in which point, you're pretty well, up the creek on that one. Remember, don't be evil. That's Google's motto, and Google's doing pretty well. So don't be oblivious. Pay attention. Know what the rules are. Read up on them. And finally, you're not a special snowflake. I'm not a special snowflake. We're all equal. Nobody's more equal than others when it comes to following the rules. I went a little over my time, but with the 5 minutes we have left, well, first of all, thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any questions that I can answer? No need for that, but thank you. Are there any questions that I can answer? Any inquiries? Anything I can elucidate on? No? Nobody wants to talk about their potential ethical quandary in front of a bunch of strangers? I'm shocked. Okay. Well, at any rate, thank you so much for your time. I'll hang around afterwards. Y'all have been great, and thank you so much. So have a good afternoon.